videos for a couple weeks. This is Paul Glumaz, veteran political activist with Lyndon LaRouche, and this is being brought to you by General Welfare Presents. Okay, and today is the 12th of February. It's also the day of Lincoln's birth. It's also the day 1 year ago in which Lyndon LaRouche passed away. Now, the situation that we are faced with right now is very dire. The president survived this impeachment charade, but the charade was never really meant to be, in and of itself, an impeachment. It was meant to be more of a component by itself, that is. It was meant to be more of a component of a coup. And we've said this before, the coup is not just the Democrats running this impeachment, but rather the impeachment is part of an insurrection which is going on inside the government. And that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with a continuous insurrection inside the government, within the National Security Council, within the State Department, the Defense Department, the Justice Department, the FBI, the CIA, the 17 intelligence agencies, right? Which said that there was a high probability of Russian intervention in the elections. When 17 intelligence agencies tell you there's a high probability of something, then you know that nothing happened, because they wouldn't be telling you they had a high probability, because there's 17 intelligence agencies. They would know. And if they don't know, it means it didn't happen. Okay, so nonetheless, what you have is this insurrection. And the media is part of it. So you have essentially an insurrection. You even had a report put out by something called it's a think tank. It's a very important think tank, saying that the problem is you don't have a system where you professionals have the say, and it talks about how the Republican Party didn't outlaw Donald Trump. In other words, the Republican Party did not do their due diligence by preventing Donald Trump from just saying he's not allowed in the convention. Doesn't matter how many primaries he wins. It doesn't matter how many delegates he gets. It's irrelevant. And then they mentioned that the Democratic Party did this to LaRouche, but the Republican Party failed to do it to Donald Trump. And this is one of the major think tanks who are now rethinking the election process, saying that the professionals need to play a much more important role in deciding who the candidates are. So they're now talking about a situation where they don't want the population to decide who the candidates are. Well, the population were not deciding who the candidates were in the past, except now, because you have an eruption of the population. But up until now, it's the way the population was controlled by the media and the pundits and the posters and the advertising and all of that. But we're no longer in that manifold. We're no longer in that kind of situation. We're now in a situation where the population is now rejecting all of this. So now they're saying, okay, the problem is the population is susceptible to what? They're susceptible to whatever, to Donald Trump. They're susceptible to Bernie Sanders. They're susceptible to populism or what have you, and therefore, they're not making the best choices, and we need those kind of things. And so this is a major think tank. I wish I had it. I wish I had it on my. This is a major think tank, and I think I better tell you what the think tank is, because I think it's very important. It's a very important think tank. It's like perhaps one of the biggest ones. It's called the It's the Brookings Institution. There you go. It's the Brookings Institution. That's like the core think tank for all of the functionaries of the State Department, the policy people, the Brookings Institution. This is what they're saying. They're saying that the American people should not be really fully allowed to choose anymore who's going to be the presidential candidate, who's going to be nominated by the parties, and so forth and so on. And so that means they've lost control of the American population. They've lost control. And you see that in two candidates. One is Donald Trump, and the other is Bernie Sanders. And Donald Trump tweeted something, I think, if I got it right, that of all the candidates that are running in the Democratic Party, Bernie Sanders has actual people on the street. He has actual foot soldiers. He has actual support. He has actual support, real support. Not how much money you pay for TV ads, not the experts, not the massaging, none of that. He's actually got people to support. And if you look at him, he sounds a little nuts to me, but he has a lot of support. And that support is coming from very young people, and it's coming from other people. And they're saying that these are unacceptable candidates. Trump is definitely an unacceptable candidate. And you saw what they did to Bernie Sanders. Now, Bernie Sanders is acting a little weird. He's saying that the climate change scientists who are warning us about the global warming are actually, it's worse, as he says, it's worse than what they're saying. It's worse than what they're saying. So he's talking about a rabid, radical green agenda. And maybe that plays well with the 18-year-olds and the new voters and the young kids. But the point is that that's insanity. You can't do that to a nation. You can't do that to an economy. Nonetheless, what we're witnessing now is a disintegration of the control over the population. And you see that in the increased popularity of Donald Trump, the very large numbers of people who show up at his rallies, of whom maybe only 45% are Republicans, the rest are Democrats and independents, 20% are people who've never voted but are planning to vote. You know, so this is very this is something that is happening, but yet the institutions of government, the media, the Congress, the parties, the financial, the financial structure, and the State Department and the Defense Department, all these departments are totally in an insurrectionary mode, which means they're in an insurrectionary mode against not just Trump but also the American people, and that's basically what they're in an insurrectionary mode against, because the American people were not supposed to be behaving this way at this time. They have employed, thousands of very high-level sociologists, psychologists, profilers, psychometric nudge experts, behavioral psychologists. I mean, they put a lot into the programs. Like you think that all the major media have the same line, the same story. You think that's an accident? No, they've actually have very sophisticated programs to like figure out what is going to be the angle today that we're going to present this for this purpose, to maintain this narrative or maintain that narrative. So it's not like it's a lot of profiling and so forth and so on. And so the profiles are breaking down. You got Democrats, you got Republicans, you got independents, you got people who never voted before. The profiles are breaking down, and they can't seem to get around this profile. Their profiles aren't working. But there's a deeper problem in that the way they present things is implicitly and explicitly, fundamentally cognitively dissonant. So you'll have so you'll have contradictory aspects. Like they'll focus in on the climate issue, right? But on the other hand, they will focus in on how the economic situation isn't good. We're not doing anything. We're not building. We're not developing. So there's a cognitive dissonance there, and they'll focus in on Donald Trump as the guy who's about to launch a nuclear war. At the same time, they're attacking Russia and saying the same people are attacking Russia, saying we have to have a war with Russia. So there is this incredible cognitive dissonance where you have one message, which is Donald Trump is a warmonger and he's about to launch a nuclear war, and then the same and different message is that Putin is the enemy and China's the enemy, and it's the same. It's completely cognitively dissonant. And the problem with Trump is that he's trying to chummy up. He doesn't have any. He wants to help work with Putin because Putin helped get him elected. So you got these two different things. Trump is about to go to war with Russia because he's crazy. He's a warmonger. At the same time, they're saying Russia is controlling Trump. That's cognitively dissonant. Okay, we have a population that has been so slammed from very early age with cognitive dissonant messages that people have a hard time. They have a hard time because they're holding very different messages in their head, and it's a very severe problem in the U.S. and it's worse with liberals. It's absolutely worse with liberals. They actually believe you can have contradictory outlooks and contradictory things, and it's perfectly all right. Because that's the nature of things. I mean, it's really crazy. I mean, we got you have this woman Pelosi saying, we have to impeach him because of we're defending the Constitution. Yet the Constitution has nothing that they're doing is in the Constitution. But they can say that. It's completely cognitively dissonant. You can have Elizabeth Warren say, we need to set up a enforcement, criminal enforcement system for people that peddle disinformation. Well, who decides who peddles disinformation? Well, the authority that we set up. But they're impartial. They're going to be impartial. Well, who's impartial? Well, what is the First Amendment about? And that's totally cognitively dissonant. To say we're going to have more truthfulness by policing what people say and claiming that if it's disinformation, well, what isn't disinformation out there? It's all disinformation. So who gets to choose what? If people don't use their mind to figure out everyone has a mind, everybody has an intelligence. And if they're not applying that intelligence, well then how do they know anything that they're being told anyhow? They have to see through the contradictions. But if you get people to accept that contradictions are the nature of things, then you don't see the process that's creating the contradictions. You can't make sense of it. So why not just not bother making sense of it? Why not just react to everything as it is by itself? Or we react to, Saddam Hussein is a tyrant. Putin is a tyrant. Xi Jinping of China is a tyrant. Bashir Assad is a tyrant. And we have to promote democracy. And you go in and you kill 1 million people and you tell people, look, you just supported killing 1 million people. Oh well, we're defending democracy. It was the right thing to do. That's our State Department. What's wrong with that? There's a problem there. It's cognitively dissonant. Well, the people doing it, of course, know what they're doing. The people set it up, the people organize it enough, but the functionaries are totally psychotic. They're totally cognitively dissonant. You saw that with the people they brought on to testify in the original impeachment hearings. They were completely cognitively dissonant. You know, we're defending democracy. We're defending the free world, right? You know, with mass murder. It doesn't make any sense. So, so what you see happening in the population, which is very, very interesting, people are starting off being asleep, and then the drama around Trump is activating them, and then they're starting to look into things, and then they have posed with these cognitively dissonant problems, and a lot of them are starting to try to figure it out. And then they get hit with all these conspiracy theories that are also very cognitively dissonant. So they have to, you know, they have to figure that out too. But there is this process going on where people are starting to figure it out. So they did a poll, a Pew poll, on what are the most significant issues in people consider most important. And the first, of course, was the economy. And they did 18 issues, and 17 was climate change. So the biggest issue in the media is climate change, but for the average person, the climate change is 17 out of 18. So there's this incredible, situation where people aren't going along. So how many people really want to show up for Buttigieg? And what's that going to be all about? I mean, are we going to have a first man in the White House? You know, is that going to work? You don't have a first lady anymore. You have a first man in the White House. How's that going to play in the population? But yet Buttigieg has tremendous support from who? Not the population. He has tremendous support from the CIA and the FBI. His whole apparatus is part of the CIA, FBI apparatus. His whole campaign. And then this thing that happened in Iowa. The company that provided the app is very closely associated with the intelligence community and with Buttigieg. So you got to ask yourself, what the hell's going on? But none of what these people represent is where the American population is. So what's going to happen now? So now you got this guy Bloomberg coming in to buy the black vote in South Carolina so that he can win the primary there and be catapulted into the whatever. And then they have a quote from him at an Aspen Institute in 2015 where he's basically saying, I did the stop and frisk on the basis of race, because that's where 95% of the crimes come from. It's come from minorities. So, and the stop and frisk means you stop everybody of that race. So, how's that going to play in South Carolina? And then you have, what happens if you get a brokered convention? How much money is per delegate is Bloomberg going to pay? $500,000 to $200,000, $100,000. That's where it's headed. So Bloomberg gets the nomination, and people are going to look at this guy saying, "This guy is a stone cold killer. I mean, this guy has no empathy for anybody. He's nasty, and we want him as president." So where is this all going? So Trump gets reelected, but then you have what? You have this massive mobilization right now in the U.S. to demonize China. That China's the enemy. And part of the problem is our vaunted cyber sector, our IT sector, Apple, Amazon, you name it. They didn't give a damn about 5G. There's no American company really moving in to do 5G. Why? Because 5G involves an entirely different kind of infrastructure. And it requires a lot of investment. Because you're setting up radio towers. You're not setting up fiber optic cables of 3G and 4G. 5G is an entirely new catapulting of a platform that will transform all industrial, commercial, and financial and administrative operations. And China's Huawei and ZTE are leading the world in putting this together. And if China was to get control of the whole thing on a global scale, then you essentially have to use China for a lot of things, and otherwise you're going to be very inefficient relative to other people using the 5G. The only other companies that are big on 5G are Nokia and Ericsson. Ericsson's from Sweden and Nokia's from Finland. Now, Bill Barr gave a presentation on Thursday at the Center for Strategic International Studies where he said, this is serious. We have to match what the Chinese are doing, and we can't do it under the current system. We have to get the academia, the private sector, and the government together to make sure that we do this, and we're way behind. And then he proposed that the U.S. merge with Nokia and Ericsson to be able to compete with China on 5G. This is a panic. This is panic. And he refers to it as a Sputnik moment. So a lot of the Cold War stuff is also related against China, is also related to the fact that the U.S. vaunted super billionaires of the IT sector couldn't give a damn about the country, couldn't give a damn about keeping up. All they wanted was the profit. Yeah, they used China to make their Apple phones and all of that, but they didn't go into the research into the next platform, and 5G is the next platform, 5th generation. So this is also going to force people to have to realize that the economic policy of the United States has to change, because you can't do this kind of investment under the existing financial system, which is heading into a systemic breakdown. So what happens when you have a systemic breakdown? Well, you have to move fast on an emergency basis to put into place an alternative system. And there's mootings that Trump's proposed Federal Reserve Chairman to replace Powell, a woman, what's her name? Sheila Shelton. Shelton is her last name, and I forgot her first name. Janet Shelton. That she is discussing a fixed exchange system, a gold reserve fixed exchange system. That's LaRouche. I don't know how far they're going with it, but that's LaRouche. So there's inklings in the works that under certain circumstances Trump may go with those kind of policies. But you can't do a gold reserve fixed exchange system without working it out with other countries. And you can't work it out with other countries if you're at war with them. So the entire idea of bringing the United States, Russia, China, and other nations together to end these wars and establish a comprehensive new security architecture, which is what is being called by Putin, which is what the Russians are organizing, is a part of creating a fixed exchange system. It's integrated because you have to have a commitment to peace in order to have a fixed exchange system. You can't be at war, permanent war, proxy war, which is what all these terrorists are. They're mercenaries, terrorist proxy wars, to against Russia and China. Ultimately, that's where they want to do, against the potential economic development of Eurasia. So that's where we are, and the thing about Putin that you have to understand is he's not taking sides. He doesn't take the Israeli side. He doesn't take the Palestinian side. He's not taking the Turkish side and then taking the Syrian side. He's not taking the Turkish side and then the Iran side. He's not taking the Iran side and then taking the Saudi Arabia. He's not playing one off against the other. He's trying to broker relationships such that the wars end. And that makes Russia the honest broker in all these conflicts, which is why they're trying to bring all these conflicts to an end. And if you give Trump a second term under certain circumstances, Trump will work with that, and you will see an end to all of these conflicts. You'll see a lot of resolutions taking place. So this Democratic primary thing is really a freak show. I mean, I don't know what else to call it. I mean, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of frightening, and the big problem with that is the only person that's standing is Donald Trump. And the problem with that is he doesn't have a way to operate off of an opposition. Because the way the oppositions work is that the opposition it allows you to operate and promote policies and discussion. You don't have that. All you have is a freak show and an insurrection. That's all you got, and that creates a very difficult circumstance to make policy, to pass the laws. Trump is trying to get through Congress a bill for NASA to go to the moon and build a base. It's very difficult to do because there's all this subterfuge. So you don't have that dialogue. You don't have an opposition, a legitimate opposition, dialoguing with the president. You don't have that, and that's the problem. That's one of the problems. So that's it.
Common stock investments have helped to make our country prosperous and powerful. Owning a share in American industry is like owning a share in the future of our nation. But remember, John Q, there is a risk as well as an advantage in owning any kind of property. So get the facts before you put your money to work.